We assume that proximity equals safety. We believe that if we are close enough to touch someone, if we share a roof, a room, or even a bed, we would feel the moment they begin to slip away. We tell ourselves that catastrophe makes a sound, that a crisis screams before it strikes. But that is rarely true. Most tragedies begin in absolute silence. They start in the moments we classify as routine. A door clicking shut, a pair of shoes laced up in the dark, a figure moving through a hallway while the rest of the house breathes in the rhythm of sleep. We look at these moments and see normalcy. We should be seeing the end. On a morning meant for celebration, a 19-year-old girl rose from the bed she shared with her mother. She put on a black hoodie and blue pajama bottoms. She did not wake anyone. She did not leave a note. She did not take the device that held her entire digital life. She simply walked out the front door and stepped into the gray margin between the driveway and the rest of the world. Her father would later say the air in the house felt normal. He would insist that the night before, she had said "I love you" in a voice that carried no weight of finality. He was certain he knew her. He was certain he knew her heart. But 6 days later, search teams would return to a patch of brush they had already cleared. They would find her there. Not miles away, not across the border. Just 100 yards from the room where her parents were waiting for her to come home. The distance of 100 yards is roughly a 1-minute walk. It is close enough to hear a voice calling your name. It is close enough to see the porch light flicker on. Yet, between the front door and that patch of brush, a fracture occurred that no one in the family saw coming. The surveillance footage captures her at 6:58 a.m. She pauses at the family vehicle. She peers inside. Is a small, mundane action. Is she checking for something she forgot? Is she hesitating? Or is she saying goodbye to the last object that connects her to a life she is about to leave? She turns away from the car. She walks toward the street. The camera stops recording. 15 minutes later, a neighbor's dashcam catches a glimpse of a figure walking northbound on Wild Horse Parkway. She is alone. Her pace is steady. She is walking away from the house, yet 6 days later, she will be found in a location that suggests she never truly left. This is where the story should clarify, but instead, it blurs. The sheriff's department will tell you this is a tragedy of the mind, that the wall seats are not released. They will point to a mutual breakup and a firearm found in the grass as indicators of a private, silent battle with depression. They will construct a narrative of a young woman who walked into the brush to end her pain. But the family tells a different story. Her father describes a daughter who was athletic, humble, and deeply connected to her future. He describes a psychological impossibility, a girl who showed zero signs of the darkness authorities claim consumed her. He insists that you cannot hide a depression this lethal from the people who watch you sleep. So, one of them is wrong. Either a trained investigative team has misread the physical evidence of a crime scene, or a loving father has misread the entire internal reality of his own child. There is a gap in the timeline. There is a gun with an origin that hasn't been publicly explained. There is a phone left on a nightstand that holds the only answers we might ever get. And there is the lingering question of the previously searched area. If she was there the whole time, just a stone's throw from her driveway, why did it take the FBI, drones, and hundreds of volunteers 6 days to find her? And if she wasn't there, where was she for the 144 hours that her family waited by the phone? We are looking at the disappearance of Camila Mendoza Olmos, and to understand how a life ends 100 yards from safety, we have to look at the 24 hours before the silence began. Because something happened in that house that didn't feel like a warning sign until it was too late. There is a specific kind of silence that settles over a house on Christmas Eve morning. It is usually a silence of anticipation. The calm before the noise of unwrapping, of cooking, of families gathering in rooms that suddenly feel too small. In Northwest Bexar County, on the morning of December 24th, 2025, that silence was heavy. The neighborhood of Wild Horse Parkway is the kind of place designed for safety. It is a grid of manicured lawns and brick facades, pushing up against the edge of the Texas brushland. It is the kind of place where people move to raise families, to be close to the city, but far from its chaos. Camila Mendoza Olmos was 19. She was at that delicate threshold between childhood and independence, a college student, yet still deeply woven into the fabric of her parents' home. By every external metric, she was thriving. Her father, Alfonso, would later use words like athletic, humble, and caring to describe her. These are not the adjectives usually attached to a person on the brink of collapse. But on this particular morning, the silence in the Mendoza home wasn't anticipation, it was a countdown. To understand the shock of what followed, we have to look at the night before. According to her father, December 23rd was indistinguishable from any other night. There were no arguments, there were no slammed doors. There was no visible crisis. Camila walked into the room where her father was. She looked at him and said, "I love you." In hindsight, the human mind desperately wants to rewrite that moment. We want to believe there was a tremor in her voice, a hesitation, a specific kind of eye contact that signaled a final goodbye. We look for leakage, the psychological term for when internal intent accidentally spills out into external behavior. But her father didn't hear a goodbye. He heard a routine. He sighed later. She was always like that. Nothing felt awkward or different. This is the terrifying ambiguity of the familial bond. We assume that love grants us telepathy. We assume that if our child was standing on a precipice, we would intuitively feel the vertigo. But Alfonso Mendoza felt nothing but the comfort of a daughter who seemed fine. The proximity was even closer than conversation. On the night of December 23rd, Camila slept in the same bed as her mother, Rosario. This detail is crucial. It dismantles the idea of physical isolation. She wasn't locked away in a basement or secluded in a dorm room miles away. She was literally within arm's reach of the person who brought her into the world. Psychologists talk about masking, the ability of high-functioning individuals to compartmentalize their distress so effectively that they can lie next to a loved one, breathe in the same rhythm, and yet inhabit a completely different reality. If Camila was indeed harboring the undiagnosed depression that Sheriff Salazar would later reference, she was doing so with a terrifying level of control. To sleep beside your mother while planning your own disappearance requires a dissociation that contradicts the image of the emotional or unstable teenager. It suggests a resolve that is quiet, cold, and absolute. At 6:45 a.m., Rosario woke up. She saw Camila getting out of bed. The movements were slow, not frantic. There was no sudden jolt, no rushing. Camila put on the black hoodie. She pulled on the baby blue pajama bottoms. She slipped her feet into white shoes. To a mother's sleepy eye, this looked like routine. Perhaps a trip to the bathroom. Perhaps a glass of water. Perhaps one of the early morning walks Camila was known to take to clear her head. Rosario did not speak. She did not ask, "Where are you going?" She simply observed the silhouette of her daughter moving in the dim light, and then she closed her eyes. She drifted back to sleep, secure in the assumption that Camila would be there when she woke up again. That assumption of return is the last luxury the family would have. Between 6:45 a.m. and 6:58 a.m., Camila made a series of choices that defy easy explanation. She walked past the living room. She walked past the Christmas tree. She reached the entry table where her iPhone and iPad sat, charging the lifelines to her friends. Her social media, her entire external identity. And she left them there. In 2025. For a 19-year-old to voluntarily sever their digital connection is almost as significant as severing a physical limb. It creates a digital silence that usually indicates one of two things: an abduction where the device is forcibly left behind, or a decision to enter a place where no signal can follow. She opened the door. She stepped out into the cold. And as the latch clicked shut behind her, the ordinary morning ended, and the mystery began. In the absence of human witnesses, we turn to the cold, objective memory of machines. We hope they will capture the truth. Often, they only capture the mystery. At 6:58 a.m., 13 minutes after leaving her mother's bedside, the Ring camera at the Mendoza residence activates. It detects motion. It records Camila standing in the driveway. She is not running. She is not looking over her shoulder as if being pursued. The black hoodie is pulled up. The blue pajama bottoms are visible. But then, she does something that lingers in the mind of every investigator who watches the tape. She pauses at the family vehicle. She leans in. She peers through the glass into the empty interior of the car. Why was she checking to see if it was unlocked? Was she looking for something she had left behind? Or was she catching a glimpse of her own reflection in the dark glass? A final moment of recognition before stepping into the unknown. The camera does not record intent. It only records action. She turns away from the car. She walks toward the street. The sensor times out. The recording stops. For 15 minutes, there is nothing. A void in the data. Then, at roughly 7:15 a.m., a second digital eye blinks open. A neighbor, driving to work on Wild Horse Parkway, captures a figure on their dashcam. Sheriff Javier Salazar would later confirm this is the last verified sighting of Camila Mendoza Olmos alive. The footage is mundane, yet terrifying in its implications. She is walking northbound. She is walking away from the residence. She is upright, steady, and alone. There is no second person in the frame. There is no vehicle slowing down beside her. This footage creates the primary geometric contradiction of the case. If she was walking northbound on the parkway at 7:15 a.m., she was already several minutes away from her home. She was moving deeper into the world, further from safety. Yet, 6 days later, she would be found only 100 yards from her front door. To get from the dashcam location back to where her body was found, she would have had to turn around. She would have had to retrace her steps, walk back toward the house she had just left, and then deviate into the brush just moments before reaching safety. Did she change her mind? Did she try to come home? Or did the timeline we have been given hide a gap we cannot see? By 8 a.m., The sun is fully up. The silence in the Mendoza home shifts from peaceful to oppressive. Rosario wakes fully. The bed beside her is empty. The bathroom is empty. The kitchen is quiet. This is the moment where the routine collapses. A walk is 20 minutes, 30 at maybe 40. But an hour without a phone. The family locates the devices. The iPhone, the iPad. They are still there, plugged in, silent. In forensic psychology, this is often the first indicator of a no-return scenario. A runaway takes their phone. A person meeting someone takes their phone. Even someone in a mental health crisis often takes their phone to send a final message or to listen to music as a comfort. Leaving the device is an act of erasure. It says, I do not want to be tracked. I do not want to be called. I am already gone. But the family does not see it that way. They see an interruption. They see a girl who might have been taken. And so, the panic begins to rise, not as a slow tide, but as a sudden, suffocating wave. When law enforcement is called, they make a classification. Usually, a 19-year-old walking away from home is treated as a voluntary adult absence. Police say, wait 24 hours. They say, she probably just needs space. That did not happen here. The reaction was immediate and massive. The Bexar County Sheriff's Office did not just file a report. They activated a clear alert. This is critical. In Texas, a clear alert is reserved for individuals who are in imminent danger of bodily injury or death, or whose disappearance is involuntary. It is the tool used for abductions in high-risk scenarios. Why? If the sheriff suspected suicide from the start, as they would later claim, why trigger an alert designed for abductions? What sensitive information did they find in the house? Or on those abandoned devices that convinced the FBI and Homeland Security to join the hunt immediately? They saw something that convinced them Camila didn't just walk away, but that she was in immediate, mortal peril. And whatever they saw, they kept it to themselves. For 6 days, the search for Camila Mendoza Olmos expanded outward. It pushed into the surrounding counties. It engaged federal agencies to monitor transit points. It asked the public to look for a girl who might be hundreds of miles away. We assume that when people vanish, they go somewhere. We assume distance is the mechanism of disappearance. But on the afternoon of December 30th, the search collapsed back in on itself. Investigators returned to a patch of brush they had already walked through, scanned from above, and checked repeatedly. It was roughly 100 yards from the Mendoza's front door. A football field, that is the distance. A distance you can cross in seconds. A distance close enough that the ordinary sounds of a home would still carry. At 5 p.m., she was located. The discovery did not bring relief. Instead, it fractured the logic of the investigation. If she had been there the entire time, how had trained search teams missed her? And if she had been there the entire time, how did events unfold so close to home without drawing attention? The moment a missing person case shifts to a confirmed loss, the narrative authority moves from the family to the state. The sheriff's department stepped forward to define what they believed had occurred. Sheriff Salazar's words were measured, restrained, and final. At this point, we don't believe another individual was involved. In law enforcement language, this statement signals a turning point. It narrows the focus away from outside involvement and toward an internal explanation. Officials cited evidence, found at the scene and information connected to the home to support this direction. Details were limited, but the implication was clear. The incident was not being treated as a criminal act by another party. The working explanation formed quickly. A young woman experiencing unseen personal distress left the house and did not survive the events that followed. It is a contained narrative. It accounts for unanswered questions. It explains the lack of disruption. It explains the location. It aligns with commonly referenced patterns authorities rely on in similar cases. But there is a problem. It asks us to believe that a 19-year-old could carry a profound internal struggle in silence, sharing space, routines, and affection with her family without leaving any visible signal to those closest to her. This is where the psychological divide becomes impossible to ignore. Just 48 hours earlier, Camila's father stood before cameras and rejected the very framework authorities were now using. She was athletic, he said, humble, caring. She always put others first. When asked about emotional distress, his response was unwavering. He said it did not align with who she was. He described someone focused on forward plans, not withdrawal or despair. This is the core rupture of the case. On one side is the institutional explanation, the scene, the evidence, the interpretation of hidden struggle. On the other side is the personal reality, a parent's lived experience with his child. Both cannot fully coexist. If the official explanation is accurate, then those closest to Camila never truly saw what she was carrying. If her father's account is accurate, then the physical scene is missing a crucial piece of the truth. The sheriff mentioned one additional element. He referred to sensitive information that influenced their assessment. He cited unspecified indicators suggesting she may have been vulnerable, but no details were provided. Was it something written, something digital, something interpreted after the fact? Or was the conclusion shaped primarily by circumstance? The public was asked to accept the outcome without access to the reasoning behind it. To believe that Camila Mendoza Olmos walked 100 yards into the winter brush and never made it back. But as daylight faded on December 30th and the perimeter was established, a final and unsettling question remained. If she left the house at 7:15 a.m. as the dashcam indicated, why was her position oriented the opposite way? Did she change her mind? Was she returning? Or did something happen on that road that altered her direction entirely? There is a physics to a search party. It is a grid. It is a mathematical process of elimination. When the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and hundreds of volunteers swept the area around the Mendoza home, they used dogs trained to detect human scent and drones equipped with thermal imaging. We trust this technology. We believe that a heat signature cannot hide from a thermal camera. We believe that a canine nose cannot miss what is right in front of it. And yet, we are told that for 6 days, Camila lay invisible in a patch of brush that had been previously searched. Sheriff Salazar acknowledged this anomaly. He admitted investigators had been there before. He offered no detailed explanation for how a body and a firearm could be missed by the most sophisticated search apparatus available. This gap in the narrative creates a disturbing dichotomy. Possibility 1, the terrain was so dense and the body so well concealed that she simply vanished into the earth while searchers walked past her. Possibility 2, she wasn't there when they looked the first time. If the second possibility is true, it rewrites the entire ending. It suggests that while the family prayed and the police searched, Camila was alive, somewhere else, moving through the days that were supposed to be her last. Then, there is the gun. In a death investigation, the weapon is the narrator. It tells us the how. But in this case, the how is clouded by the question of whose. Authorities stated that a firearm belonging to a relative was reported missing from the Mendoza home. They strongly implied but, as of December 31st, had not forensically confirmed that the gun found next to Camila was this same weapon. This detail is the pivot point for the entire psychological profile. If Camila took the gun, it implies a level of premeditation that chills the blood. It means that amidst the "I love you" to her father and the peaceful sleep beside her mother, she was also calculating how to breach the family's security, secure a lethal weapon, and conceal it until the moment of departure. It paints a portrait of a mind operating with terrifying, silent efficiency. But what if the ballistics don't match? What if the gun found in the brush is not the family weapon? Then the suicide theory collapses instantly. A third gun introduces a third party. It introduces a source outside the home. It turns a tragedy of mental health into a crime scene. As of this moment, the ballistics report is a pending file on a desk in San Antonio. And until those serial numbers are matched, the gun is just an object of suspicion, not proof. While the physical evidence sits in an evidence locker, the digital evidence sits in a cloud. The FBI's involvement in this case was not casual. They were brought in specifically for digital forensic analysis of the abandoned iPhone and iPad. Sheriff Salazar referenced sensitive information that he could not disclose. He used this information to justify the imminent danger alert. This is the black box of the investigation. What did they find? Did they find a search history filled with queries about self-harm? If so, why was the family so blindsided? Or did they find messages? A connection to someone the family didn't know? A threat? A reason to leave the house at dawn that had nothing to do with depression and everything to do with fear? The sheriff's pivot to the suicide theory suggests they found the former. But the silence regarding the specific contents leaves room for the latter. In the absence of a suicide note, the digital data is the only voice Camila has left. And right now, that voice is sealed. The investigation has entered the pending phase. The autopsy is pending. The toxicology is pending. The ballistics are pending. But for the family, there is no pending. There is only the after. Alfonso Mendoza, the father as swore his daughter was happy, has gone silent. We do not know if his silence is an admission that he was wrong, or a retreat from a narrative he still cannot accept. We tend to view denial as a weakness. But perhaps it is a form of testimony. Perhaps he is right to question how a girl can be found 100 yards from home, with a gun that might not be hers, in a spot that was already searched. The official ruling is likely coming. It will likely say suicide. It will close the file. But a file is not a truth. And in the gap between the police report and the family's memory, the ghost of a question remains. Did Camila Mendoza Olmos walk into the woods to die? Or did she walk out into the world to live, only to be stopped by a darkness she didn't bring with her? By the first week of January, the yellow tape will come down. The news trucks will leave Wild Horse Parkway. The search volunteers will go back to their jobs. The world will categorize the death of Camila Mendoza Olmos is a tragedy, but a resolved one. A non-suspicious death, a case closed by the discovery of a body. But for those who remain, the case does not close. It merely changes shape. It transforms from a frantic search for a location into a lifelong search for a reason. If the medical examiner rules this a suicide, the file will be sealed. The specific pain that drove a 19-year-old girl into the brush will remain her own. We will never know if it was a sudden impulse or a long-planned exit. We will never know why she chose Christmas Eve. And most hauntingly, we will never know why she chose to die within the sight line of her own home. The aftermath of this case leads to distinct forms of devastation. If the sheriff is correct, if this was a hidden depression, then the Mendoza family is left with the agonizing burden of retrospective blindness. They must rewrite their entire history of their daughter. Every smile, every laugh, every I love you must be re-examined. Was that real? Or was that a mask? This is a specific kind of torture. It forces a parent to doubt their own perception of reality. It whispers that love, no matter how deep, is not always enough to see the truth. But is wrong if the family's correct. And Camila was not suicidal, then the devastation is different. It is the devastation of injustice. It means a crime has been mislabeled. It means the narrative of her life has been rewritten by the state to fit a convenient explanation. While the truth lies buried in the digital code of a locked iPad or the ballistics of a gun that was never hers. We want forensic science to be a spotlight. We want the autopsy to give us a clear cause and manner of death. But science can only tell us the mechanics of the end. It cannot map the geography of the mind. An autopsy can find a bullet, but it cannot find a motive. A toxicology report can find chemicals, but it cannot find despair. Even if the FBI releases the contents of her phone, and even if the ballistics match the family gun, the central mystery remains untouched. How does a girl who is athletic, humble, and caring become a body in the grass in the span of 6 days? How does the human instinct for survival get overruled so quietly, so completely on a morning meant for celebration? The gap between the happy daughter and the imminent danger is where the real story lives. And that gap is likely where the truth will stay caught between the family's memory and the police report. Camila Mendoza Olmos is no longer missing. She has been found. But the piece of the Mendoza home is still missing. The certainty of who she was is still missing. And for the rest of us, watching from the safety of our screens, the question she left behind is not about crime or forensics or police procedure. It is a question about the people sleeping in the rooms next to ours. We assume we know them. We assume we would see the warning signs. We assume that if they were walking toward the edge, we would be there to catch them. But as the sun rose on Christmas Eve, Alfonso and Rosario Mendoza assumed the same thing. Some mysteries are solved by handcuffs. Others are solved by confessions. But the hardest ones are the mysteries that end with a gavel banging on a desk, ruling a death explained, while the questions continue to echo in the silence. Camila Mendoza Olmos walked 100 yards. That is the distance of the mystery. It is the distance between the life everyone saw and the reality no one knew. Tonight, check on the people you love. Listen to the silence in your own home. Because sometimes, the things we miss aren't hidden in the dark. They are standing right in front of us, in the light of an ordinary morning. There are other stories like this. Stories where the official explanation doesn't quite fit the shape of the grief. Stories where the house looks normal, but the walls are keeping secrets. I'll be here when you're ready to listen.